Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a card testing out some new to me watercolors. My friend Bibi Cameron came out with a line of liquid watercolors, as well as there's some stamps and things. I will link this whole little release in the description box below the video. There are 3 different sets of colors. Each set has 8 colors. I'm just looking at them. Yeah, 8 colors of these liquid watercolors. And each color has like an ounce. They come in little bottles like this. And then there's a set of 4 metallics that they're called Sparkle Base, which I use the gold one. Are we surprised? I like gold. And yeah, this is my first impression. This was literally the very first time I used them. I thought, why not make a card and film it while I'm doing it? So that's what I did. I like them. I like them. Bibi did good. So, like I said, I will link though, because there's some little there's sentiment stamps and different things and whatnot. So I'll just put a link to that. You guys can check it out. There will be more content coming. These were just released as of filming this intro. They just came out. So there will be more like info and content and things, inspiration, all of that. So just stay tuned because I'll be using them more and more the more I play with them because I am enjoying them. And other makers, I'm sure, will have tons of fabulous content, including Bibiana herself. She makes beautiful cards. I will link to like her blog and whatnot as well because if you don't already follow her, you should. She does a lot. She does a lot more on Instagram, like little shorts and reels and things with her cards, and so creative. So creative. So that was my intro, I guess. Everything I used, as always, I'll have listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills, keeps the heaters running, enables me to keep doing this job. And yeah, that's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into making this card. So for my main image, I'm using Simon Says Stamps' new Anemone Wreath background stamp. And I have some Canson XL watercolor paper here. And I just kind of centered it in my MISTI. And then I'm going to heat emboss this wreath image. And yeah, I used Canson. I've used Canson XL watercolor paper for years. I like it. It's cheap. I have a tendency to hoard the good stuff, even though I tell you all, do as I say, not as I do. Like, use the good papers, you get better results. However, especially when I'm like testing out anything newer to me, with like watercolor, that sort of stuff, I go for the Canson first because it's like, we'll see. If it works on this, I'm good, you know? Because then it will for sure work on the good papers, you know? Anyway, I use my anti-static powder tool on the watercolor paper. And then I'm inking up and stamping this image multiple times with clear embossing ink. I do this regardless, just to make sure I get detail. I do it especially on watercolor paper because watercolor paper is a bit more textured. The Canson XL is not very textured, but large image, still using watercolor paper, I would rather, ink up and stamp multiple times to make sure, I got all that detail going on. And I write, especially if you're using more textured watercolor paper, like arches, ones that do have a bit more tooth, a bit more texture to them. Inking up and stamping your image multiple times without pressing. You're not doing CPR on your, stamps, but just ink up, stamp multiple times. That generally will work. So after I'd stamped the image, I coated it with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder, and then melted it with my heat tool till everything is smooth and shiny and melted and beautiful. And then the watercolors. So the set I reached for first is the Bohemian Regals. And I'm only using 4 colors from it, which on the palette look all the same. That's the thing with liquid watercolors. And when they're concentrated like this, They don't look like much. So one thing I like to do is I have the bottles right behind the little drops I'm putting on my palette here so that I can see which color is which. Although the minute I, dip my brush in and start swirling it around, you can tell which color it is. But on screen, those look like just 4 dark little blobs, but they're beautiful colors. So like I said, I use those 4 colors, which were Purple Rain, Bluegrass, Verdigris, Sepia, and then I used the Sparkle Base in Gold, which we'll get to in a second. So for my florals, I'm using the Purple Rain. And I did it multiple ways on this background because I was curious. So this first way was wetting each area. So I just take a brush. I'm using my Altenew watercolor brushes. I've been using these since I bought them, early last year. I've been very happy with these brushes. So anyway, I was applying just, clean water to each petal. And then I would pick up the color with another brush and drop it in, and then I will pull it out with the first brush. And that worked great. That worked great. This method, like doing wet on wet like this, so clean water and then your watercolor of choice on top of the wet area. Wet on wet generally works for almost anything. And yeah, after I did the first layer, I went in with the second layer, but I mixed some of that Sparkle Base Gold with the Purple Rain and the shimmer. It's not sparkly, it's not going to give that like super sparkly effect. And I'll show at the very end. I'll try and use my flashlight. It's hard to kind of show on camera. I was able to grab it though in one of my pictures, which I'll be at the end and also in the blog post that I'll have linked below as well. But yeah, it's pretty. I like it. So that first way was wet on wet, like clean water, and then the color. And then I started doing just direct to paper, basically, with the color, and then pulling it out with my brush that's just damp. And that works really well too. These move really nicely. I was super happy with them. I don't consider myself like, I am not a watercolor artist, super well versed in it, anything like that. I just like to play. I'm a card maker. I like to play. But these are very forgiving and very they're just nice. Like I no struggles. I am definitely not a beginner, but I think even a beginner could have fun with these. I had no struggles. Because sometimes some types of coloring mediums can be difficult. They can be a little bit finicky and struggle to work with, things like that. These I thought were great. They lifted really nice too. There's a couple times I went outside the lines, and I would just take a clean, damp brush and wet the area, and then you'd see me. I just use a little piece of paper towel to pick it up. And that's what I'm doing right there, right now. So yeah, they lifted really nice off the watercolor paper too. And like I said, I'll keep saying it. I'm happy with them. And these colors that I used are pretty. I'm going to have to play with all the other colors because, of course, I've got them all. Thank you, Bibi, for sending them to me. I can't remember. Did I say that in the intro? She sent these to me. So, because she reached out to me and was like, told me about what she was planning and everything. And I was like, yeah, my answer is yes. One, it's a coloring medium. I'm always on board. It's a watercoloring medium. So I'm extra on board. And it's her. And she's great. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this. And now it's like, ooh, I need to play some more. So by the end of the purple session, I was fully just mixing the purple and the gold together and just painting straight that way. And same thing. I was happy with it. They were great. So for the greenery, that's where I used the bluegrass color, which is more green, and then the verdigris, which is got a bit more of a blue tint. These I did not add the gold to. You totally could, but I thought I would leave the shimmer to the florals and then all the greenery, just this mix of this like greeny blue color. And yeah, just so pretty. And then for the flower centers, that's where I used the sepia. That I mixed with the gold because, of course. So I painted all that. And then I also used the gold as a splatter with the metallics. And it says right on the bottle, shake well before use. Pretty much that applies to anything that has like a metallic sort of pigment, a shimmer to it. So yeah, just give it a good shake. You can somewhat see it sitting along the bottom. So I just gave them a good shake and they were good. So I splattered these with my fan brush with that sparkle base gold. Let everything dry, which didn't take very long. And then I'm going to trim these down because my panel originally was roughly like 4.5 by 6 inches something. And I used one of Simon's basic rectangle wafer dies to die cut this and make it slightly smaller than an A2 card, which there's my card base. A2, 4.25 by 5.5 inches. And since I still had the stamp lined up in my MISTI, I'm just going to stamp the inside of my card base. So the card, it's just smooth white cardstock, and I am stamping that Anemone Wreath with Simon's Lilac Positively Saturated ink. And that's all I'm doing for the inside. I just kept it simple. So stamp that onto the inside of the card. And then I grabbed this purpley cardstock for my stash. I'm pretty sure this is Gina K Plum Punch cardstock. Yeah. And I had this big old scrap, which was just a good size. And I'm going to use, again, my anti-static powder tool on it. And I'm using the Elegantly Modern Greetings stamp set and the big thanks sentiment from it. And again, inking up and stamping multiple times. Any sort of image that has either tons of detail or like thicker, more solid areas, I would rather just ink it up and stamp it multiple times. That gives it more layers of that sticky ink. So there's more for the embossing powder to cling to and you get a better result. So I used the gold embossing powder on that as well. And then after it had cooled off for a few seconds, I used my little microfiber cloth and a bit of elbow grease to buff away that excess anti-static powder. And then I die cut it with the coordinating wafer die. And then I die cut the rest of that scrap with the same wafer die so I can build these up to build up dimension, because there's some finicky bits on this sentiment that I am not messing around with foam tape. I don't have the patience for that. So I adhered 2 layers together, and then I'm trimming off the bottom. This will make sense in a minute. So I trimmed off the bottom. So I've just basically got like kind of the top of this sentiment here. And I'm going to adhere this behind the heat emboss sentiment. And then those little finicky bits that I trimmed off, I'm going to cut them down just a smidge. I'm basically creating a channel between the bulk of the sentiment and the very bottom. Like just narrow. I was just eyeballing it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there's like a gap there. I want to put baker's twine on this card, and then this way I can adhere the sentiment, and the baker's twine is going to run through that gap, and then the sentiment will sit flush on the card. So sometimes there's a method to my madness. So I've got my baker's twine, and I'm going to wrap this around this panel a couple times here. And then, as always, reverse tweezers for the win. So using my sentiment to figure out where I want the little bow to be, I start the bow, use the reverse tweezers to hold it closed so I can sit and fiddle and get my little bow the way I want it. And then once I'm happy with how that's all looking, I can pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again, fiddle with it some more, because today was the day that it decided to just be annoying. So once I got it the way I wanted, I can then adhere the sentiment in place, and I will have the baker's twine run through that little gap between the top and bottom portions, just like so. So once I've got that adhered into place, to adhere this to my card base, I'm going to use Simon's Big Mama foam tape. It's going to pop that into place, and same thing, the Big Mama foam tape will let the baker's twine run between those pieces so that this panel also is, nice and flat. So get that into place, peel off the backing. I can pop this onto my card base. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, I have some Lilac Pawsitively Dazzling gems in their little container that I love to shake because I'm a toddler, basically. Yeah, the color was just perfect. And like I always say, same thing. These always look kind of just on camera, like straight down. But oh, they're pretty when you tilt them in the light. So I adhered a few of those into place. And that finished off this card. So yeah, I'm going to use my flashlight to try and show. Like I said, it's not sparkly. It's more of a shimmer. And I'm kind of splitting hairs with that. But for me, like, there is a difference. It's pretty. So it's just there. And like I said, in the last photo, you can kind of see it a little better too. I like it. And of course it splatters fabulously. So I'm already a fan of these watercolors. They're fun. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will link to the whole like little collection as well as to Bibiana's blog. And then I'll have links to all the supplies I use. So you can just check that out in the description box below the video if you're interested. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, thumbs upping, commenting, all the good things. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!